We ready to go?
Mhm.
Great. Yeah, so welcome to DM Therapy. This is a conversation that Khadijah and I usually have in our Instagram DMs, but we decided to make a podcast. So, welcome. And Khadijah, you want to say something or you want me to just get started?
We just get started. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All
What
right.
you got?
So let's start off with I like the would you rather. So let's start off with a would you rather. Would you rather travel 100 years in the past to meet your ancestors, or 100 years in the future to meet your descendants?
Hmm. So all I'm doing is meeting these people, and then I'm coming back to my present day.
Yeah, you'll be able to come back. You're
Okay.
not gonna be stuck nowhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, I think I would like to meet my ancestors.
Okay. How come?
Um, because I like history, and I just
Mm-hmm.
would like to learn where I came from because I really don't know much. I can't go back that far
Mm-hmm.
in my lineage, so I would like to know, where I came from. What kind of things did my family do? What kind of things were we
Mm-hmm.
a part of? How did they get the strength to survive? If they were slaves, they may not have been. You
Right.
know, um, that's something I've always been interested in. A lot of people talk about slavery, but every black person isn't necessarily a descendant of slaves. So,
Right.
I just would like to know and talk to them and just learn more. That's kind of part of what we were trying to do at one time with besties, like bridging the gap between the young people and the older people while they were
Mm-hmm.
still here.
Right.
Because I know in my family, I don't know about your family, but I know my family and a lot of other black families, they don't share stories. They keep
Yeah.
everything a secret, and even if it's trauma, they don't talk about it. So I will
Yeah.
go back and just be my regular podcast stuff, like, so your mom beat you with a broom, and how's
Yeah.
that
Now, see, I
feel?
like that. I think my family is actually pretty good at stories. Maybe not necessarily the trauma part so much, but I think, and I don't know if other families are like this, but I think you keep stuff from the kids until like you those young people are about to be the next like parents or elders, like, you know what I'm saying. It's like, all right, now it's like, oh, I'm 70, all right, now you got to know the whole history of the family as I
Right.
know it, like, you know what I mean. But it's crazy, I do have some cousins, and they're like really close to the family. Like, I got a lot of folk down in like Virginia and whatever, and they're all like, some of them are more close knit than me. We would go there like every summer, but then it was like maybe like a 9 or 10 year period where we just wasn't connecting like that. um so I have a cousin, my cousin Nikki. She know all the stuff, she know all the things, and I don't know if that means she just nosy or like, but she knows everybody. What I mean, I'm like, who's this, and like, who, what I mean, I look at pictures, I'm like, who is that, like, and my mom was like, that's, and my mom and even my dad, on my dad's side, he be like, they're like, you should know these things, but it doesn't always register, like, what I mean.
Hmm.
So I don't know if it's me not seeking it out, or hasn't been an important piece. Maybe, I mean, it has to be a little bit of both, but
But it's like
I
it's nothing like seeing a picture of your great 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 aunt and they look just like you. Like,
yeah,
what? Like, that
yeah, I think
is,
that's dope.
I
Yeah,
like that. Like, at
yeah.
my aunt's funeral recently, well, it's my step grandfather, so he's not my grandfather, but his
Family,
family was there because my
yeah.
aunt who passed, that was actually her dad. And I had never seen them before. They look just
Mm-hmm.
like this man, like everybody at the table. And I was
Yeah,
looking over there like, that is so wild to me. But I never seen them before. I never laid eyes on them, never seen a picture of them. And even though they're like step family, they're still family. So I will be walking down the street and not even know these people. So I don't know, I just think it's important
What
just to
would
hear.
you what would you most want to get though? Like you said, where I come from, but I don't know. It sounds like you're not saying like, oh, we come from, you know, Ghana or whatever? Like, what do you mean when you say I want to see where I come from?
Like, my dad's father, supposedly he was Jamaican. So I would like to
Okay.
know what part of
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica, what
Yeah.
did you do in Jamaica? Are there any traditions? I feel like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
African American black people don't really have, like, we create our own traditions because we had to.
Yeah.
But I want to know, like, do we have family traditions? Like, what did you do? What did you cook? How did what kind of stories do you tell your kids? How did you just to know? And I
Yeah.
think that might even be more like if you see a group of people that look like you, and not to like be deep about it, but just I feel like if I growing
Yeah.
up knew that I had 100 cousins that were dark skinned and looked like me, being
Mm-hmm.
teased in school might not have been that big of a deal. I kind of felt like I
Yeah.
was the only one. A lot of my family were light skinned. You know, on my mom's side, at that time who I was, was
Like the
around
people
light
that you
skinned.
knew, like yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
I'm like, and I
yeah,
know I had other cousins who might have been chocolate or whatever, but they may have been the boys. So I don't know. I just feel like you got a whole bunch of people that look like you. It's a little bit different. Like,
yeah,
it hit different.
yeah.
Um,
So would you ever do like the ancestry or African ancestry or any of that stuff to figure that kind of stuff out?
well, I was trying to do a family documentary because a lot of the
Okay.
elders of my family are passing away. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, I don't know who my grandfather is. My mom don't know who her dad is, and my
Mm, okay.
grandma never told her. She died with that information. Then all her aunts who raised her, they all passed away. So all the people who would have even known who this man was have all
Yeah.
passed away. She has an older cousin who knows who he is, but she can't remember his name. She don't know, but she's
Mm,
older, like 80, 90.
yeah.
Um, so I kind of was like, I'm just tired of these kind of things being lost.
Yeah.
Because people are passing away. Just even funny stories. You used to play pinochle, whatever you used to do. And I want to do the ancestry, but I'm kind of a conspiracy theory type of person,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, oh, they're gonna take my DNA and they're gonna try to they're gonna try to use.
See,
I don't
so
know for
this
what.
is my thing. I'm about to say this is my thing when people say that though. I'm like, what are they going to do? And it might be like we might get mad comments or whatever. Matter of fact, comment because I don't know. But when people say that, I'm like, what are you using my DNA for? Like, what are you going to do? You're going to make another me? Are you going to like? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I don't
You go
know.
put your
Studying
DNA
it.
at the scene of a crime or something. I don't know,
They're going to take your spit and then
and go
sprinkle
put
it
it on the
over
cup.
over over a mass murder.
I don't know, but I'm just like, I feel like they,
Mm-hmm.
and I hate when people say they because it was
The
they, but I feel
proverbial
like,
they. Uh-huh.
yes, I feel like they spent so much time trying to make us forget our history and who we are. Why
Mm-hmm.
are you now like, hey, we're going to give you all your DNA, tell you where you came from, what tribe in Africa, blah 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 blah. We'll even tell you if you, we'll show you the I think with ancestry.com or something, they show you like the slave ship logs and all that. Like, now you want to give all this information up? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. It just doesn't seem
Well, I'll
right.
just I'll just say I did mine. I got mine as a gift, right? I did mine maybe 2 years ago or something like. It might be longer than that, man. These years keep running into each other now. But I did mine, and I might not have bought it on my own. Like you know what I mean? It might be like $100 or whatever. So I might not have just been like, oh, let me go grab that. But since it was a gift, like my brother did it and he loved it. Like I'll speak about that in a second. But my brother did it and then he gifted it to us the next year for like Christmas or something. And it's so dope. It's just like what you're saying, right? So like once we get a social media, like I'll give you the picture of my joint, like a screenshot of what it looked like, and um we could put the the clip of the guy from the last episode interviewing the two young ladies. But it's dope because it's like, oh, you come from here, here, and here. Like you have DNA traces from these places. Mine was Ghana and Nigeria, and it's funny because I have a friend, my friend Nima. I'm just gonna name everybody. My friend Nima. She was like, "Don't tell my business." But I was like, "Yeah, I found out I come from Nigeria, and her parents are from Africa. They're from like the Congo, like you know what I'm saying. They grew up there. She goes there all the time, like you know what I mean. So she don't have no problem understanding her ancestry because she knows exactly where she's from. Like, but for me, a displaced person of African descent, you know, seeing that and getting that validation, like, oh no, you are straight from the continent, bro. Like, I don't care how far it was back or whatever. It was just like, yes, like I have history beyond, like you said, beyond slavery. I have history beyond, like you said, the things that they give us about our history. You know what I'm saying? All right, because I think that's important that a lot of us do feel like, or, well, a lot of us feel like it starts there, but in actuality, it started way before that. And I think because a lot of us have the ideology that it does start there, then why do I want to go back to that? Why do I want to see that or understand that when in actuality it goes beyond that? And seeing that, so it was like you're like 70% from Nigeria and 20% from Ghana and 10% from like Northern European, like whatever. So got that got a little lighter complexion going on. There might have been somebody that snuck in there at one. That's not true. It's all kind of colors on the continent. I just thought it was very validating. It was very assuring for me. It was a powerful moment for me because I was like, dang, like I'm really from there. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I haven't done it yet, but doing that made me, like you said, like now I want to get like, I had this idea, maybe this will be like, could be this is only the second episode. I'm already doing spinoffs, but I want to get like a cookbook from like Nigeria and like do like, you know what I'm saying? See if the food speaks to me. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, or like, I would love to like kind of get into the culture, get into the food to see if it kind of does
But you
speaks to
see
me
how knowing that made you feel
but
like it gives you a
this is
sense
what
of
I mean. This
pride.
is what I mean. Like, I
Yeah.
think that and it's not, but that's not from necessarily from family, because a lot of times the family do like what we do, like they only know up until this point, but this is the cool thing about what my brother did. My brother got really into it, so he looks at it. This episode is sponsored by ancestry.com. This no this here I go. What he did was he looked at it in terms of health. He looked at it in terms of like lineage and stuff. He's found my grandfather's brother's family. Didn't even know who those people were. People, because if you pay a little extra, you get to see like your family tree, like you said, like what I'm saying. You could legit trace your family to places that you don't know, and then they gave you the opportunity to connect those people, like what I'm saying. If they also say you have a cousin in Jamaica, they opt to share their information as well, and you'll find that they have the same DNA strands. Like, we got this whole story about my grandfather's brother's kids, who I guess one of his kids reached out to my brother, like, what I'm saying. So like that's a whole
Wow.
part of our family that we didn't even know about. It's like
And
that
this is so
show that
ancestry.com is where you
yeah, ours was Ancestry. The one that Kaepernick was giving out to the kids was African Ancestry, I think, which might be more, because like it's crazy. When I first got mine, it it was it had kind of the same things, but they redid it. Like, everybody got more blacker after COVID, like, what I'm saying, or aware of African the need for African stories and Africans. So like magically they were like, oh, we did a deeper dive into this thing, and now it's like this much percent and this much percent. And yeah, I think the my original ones, I wonder if I have a screenshot of the original one, but the original one, there's more African strands in the second one than there was in the first one. Like, it still was like, oh, you black, but what I mean, the second one, the second one's like, no, you
Uh,
black.
did you
um,
see? I don't know which show that was where Maya Angelou. It was a couple other people, but I remember her the most. She was
yeah,
talking about how she stepped on foot on the beaches in Africa,
hmm
and she saw all these people that looked like her. I'm
that's
like, yo, that is crazy. I cannot imagine being living somewhere and everybody looks like you.
yeah. Well, that's a dope thing. Like, so immediately when I got the results, I went on Google. That's my best friend. I went on Google and I was like, black people in in Ghana or whatever, and it showed, like I said, there's so many different skin tones on the continent that are, you know, that have been a part of the continent for thousands of years, right? So I was immediately looking at the regions and saying like, oh, does this person look like me? And they do. Like, I mean, it's just point blank, they do. Like, you can see the features, you can see the eyes, you can see, I mean, some of the skin tones or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think there's such a benefit in what I call displaced people of African descent. Like, I'm saying, people in the diaspora, like, it's important to know that, I mean, to in order to build up a confidence about yourself, in order to understand where you've come, like, actually come from, and not like, like I said, like, I think majority of us only begin with trauma. So if you only begin with trauma, like, I mean, what
Hmm.
kind of, how are you going to see yourself, or are you going to care about where you come from at all, and
Do you think?
I don't think we talk enough about where
Do you,
we actually originated.
do you think that? Because I believe this. Do you think that if a lot of the younger generation, if they knew that they started somewhere other than slavery, that would like reduce crime or just the way that they feel about themselves? I feel like so many kids are depressed and so many kids feel like they don't have a future. I don't know what I want to do, and they're just all sad and depressed. And I'm like, I feel like if you knew, and this is not to knock anybody, but we can get into how I feel about other races in another show. But I
The
feel like children of other
racism show.
I feel like children of other races, when they know,
Mm-hmm.
like they may not always agree with what their parents want them to do, but they know
Mm-hmm.
this is the tradition. This is what we do. You do this, you do
Mm-hmm.
this, you do that, you do that,
Yeah.
and then they just have like a better sense of self. They have more. They don't feel worthless, and they are less likely to be out here doing these things because they know that they have
Right.
this.
But I mean, at least you have a choice to follow the tradition or not. Like, what I'm saying, I do. I believe that we're kind of out here in no man's land. Like, what I mean, like, well, we don't have that history. They've proverbial they've kind of conditioned us out of even thinking that we come from a place where we we can be proud of. Like, what I'm saying, it's almost like uh the only thing you know about your family is that your dad was in jail. Like, what I'm saying? And then that's the story that gets passed along to generation to generation, as opposed to, oh, before that, his dad was a farmer, his dad was a this, and what I'm saying? So to answer your question, I think so. I think understanding where you come from and what kind of stock you come from, like, what I'm saying?
Right.
At the same time, I think we do. The one thing that I think is true to people of African descent in America is that the resiliency carries. Like, what I'm saying? So it's like we know we're strong. We know we have to be strong. We know we can achieve great things, right? But yeah, I think coming from understanding that you come from a time that wasn't imprisonment, that wasn't, you know, dire situation, a traumatic situation. I think that's important. I do. I think that's important. And, you know, I don't know how long it would take, how many, you know, I mean, how many generations it would take to do that. But you see it because all across this country they're trying to stop that part of history from being taught. Like, you know, and they're not replacing it with, oh, let's teach them about where they actually came from. They're just like, no, that doesn't exist,
Nothing
and
happened.
nothing happened. And what we've been teaching is let's do something. Like, they're basically trying to rebrand America
No,
the
literally, the
without all the
textbook
bad
said
parts. Like,
it
you
was
know,
like Mary was upset when her friend left the plantation because
right,
she didn't
right.
have any help to take care of her children. I'm like, bro, like that's not even. And I
Yeah.
think it's gonna take a couple cycles because parents need to put in the work with their kids. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, my kids go to school, but I'm in here like, this is what it
Yeah.
is. You know, this is what we don't know. This is how you can find it out. I'm
Yeah.
always, pushing. Like, even when you read, like, a lot of people will try to, downplay people or talk down on them because they don't read. But I'm like, book, anybody can write a damn book. Like, that doesn't mean
Mm-hmm. Right.
anything.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like you can read all the books you want, but so what? I don't know. I just feel like, it's just so much lost history. And I just feel like if you knew that, like the other people,
Mm-hmm.
if you know that your father's a doctor and his father was a doctor, even your father was a marine, his father was a marine, you kind of know you're gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
marine. Now you got
Yeah.
four kids, one of them probably gonna be like, no, I want to
Mm-hmm.
work for the circus. I'm traveling for the circus. I don't want to be a marine, dad.
Right.
But the majority of them know this is what it is, and I feel like that would really just help our community so much. But nobody wants to take the time, and then people just don't know what they don't know, and it's just
Yeah, I mean, and I
I
think it's
really,
more that than anything. And it's like, you know, you and I are afforded a certain amount of privilege where we have a little bit of time, you know, to have these conversations, right? And, you know, I'm grateful for it. But everybody don't have that. Like, you know, there are people that's out there that work three jobs, and, you know, the only time they have, they get to, you know, they come home, they trying to watch they one show that they get to watch and go to sleep. Like, you know what I'm saying? And that's it. So they're not afforded the time to think like, oh, where you know, where do I come from? You know, and I think a lot, or, you know, I had this heavy behind conversation with my students this week. I asked them a question. I'm gonna ask you in another episode, but I asked them a question, and it just was like eye opening how dire they feel their situation is. Like, some of them, like, you know, what I mean, it's just like, you know, I think I put the quote up. One of my young guys, he was like, "Listen, I know you grew up where I grew up, you know, and so you understand, but it's 10 times worse. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you worried about your life like every time you go out the house, and it's almost multiplied because, like, now these beefs start on, like, the internet. You know what I'm saying? They start on these social media and all that stuff, and, like, it's funny because when I was coming up, it was like half of the people that were getting on social media was like, yeah, social media not real. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was like, yes, it is. So, you know, I like talking to all people and all that stuff. But, like, now it's become like, if you say something like, oh, that post was corny, like, you might have to mix somebody, like, you know what I mean, in that circle, like, you know what I mean, which is, it's exacerbated it, like, or it's like double the intensity of the things that we used to kind of feel
because it's
coming
a
up, which
million
is, you know,
people
yeah,
commenting. You got a
yeah,
million people saying, "Oh, you ain't shit," and I'm like,
yeah.
girl, just
Yeah, and
log off. You
without the
think that
tool
you can log
without the
off and
tools
walk
though
away?
to know that that's not the thing, because the thing is with that, you've said that now, but everybody in our circle has seen it,
Hmm.
and they are so prideful. Like, you know, I mean, they're so prideful that you can't just let that slide. You know, so I mean, that's another conversation too.
Yeah,
I think, yeah, I think it's important. I think it's important to know where you came from, either through, but I also, for people that are listening, ask them questions. Like, I love hearing my mom and my dad tell the story of how they met. Like, you know, I have filmmaking aspirations, I always like I see it so vividly. I would love to like um but every time they tell a story, I would love to make a movie out of it. But like every time they tell a story, I can see it happening. Like and I hope they don't we might have to cut this out. But my mom, when my dad met my dad was like, he was like Joe Cool, you know what I'm saying, in the neighborhood or whatever. And I have a lot of uncles on my dad's side. Actually, I have a lot of uncles on both sides. But my uncle was cool with my mom, and my uncle told my mom that my dad was into her. So, as the story goes, my mom was at the house, and somebody else that was courting her was there. And my dad came to the house, knocked on the door, and basically pulled her out the house and talked to her. You know what I'm saying? While Buddy,
Like your
whoever
dad was
dude
the G,
was,
basically.
my
Okay.
my my alternate universe father, you know what I'm saying, was sitting in the crib, probably watching the only TV, twiddling his thumbs, waiting for her to come back from the door, and like she sat up there, chatting it up with my pop. But I just think it's so hilarious. I think that's so I don't know, like it's such a funny and vivid imagery. Like I would love to have seen that like transpire. But yeah, so I think
Definitely.
I would implore people to ask, like, what I mean, if there are people to ask, you should ask, because I think what you'll find is they're more than willing to tell at least some of them stories, like, what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But you have to be equally as curious, as they might be. They might be just sitting there waiting, or it's something that how we're like this too. It's something you don't think about until the right conversation comes up. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Oh, I used to such and such. Whatever that thing is. I think that's
Mhm.
I think that's I think that's important too. So definitely ask those questions of the ancestors that you do have. Like, what I mean, because you'd be surprised at what comes out of it.
Yeah, my dad was working in a deli, and my mom kept going in there ordering fish movies because she liked them.
See,
And
see, that's what I'm saying. I love stuff like that.
yeah, it was cute. But I
It
think
also
like
like
to go back,
humanizes our parents. Like, what I mean, it's like, oh, you was just trying to,
yeah,
oh,
you liked them.
you was
Oh, you
you was
thought you,
running game. Yeah, you
yeah,
was going in there. Don't nobody
yeah.
need
My dad did
50%.
something like that too. He like pulled up, like, yo, come on, pack your stuff,
Yeah.
let's go.
I mean,
Like
our
pulled up on
parents are
the
probably close to the same age, so that might have just been the thing. Like, what I'm
yeah,
saying, that
like
might have just
I
been, well,
want you,
yeah, I
let's
want you
go.
more than they do. Like,
Yeah.
which I mean, I'm sure still happens today. Yeah, so I do think it's important. When I ask that question, it's funny because usually when I ask my students the question, I feel like it's usually split because it's only us here, but usually it's about 20 kids, sitting there, 20 teenagers, and some of them kind of say the same thing. They be like, "Oh, well, I would like to see where I come from, what it was like to get to where I am. Like, maybe they made mistakes that I made, that I make that I could learn from and things like that, which I think is cool." And then there's another half that are like, "Oh, I like to go to the future to see what my legacy is, you
Hmm.
know? And I think that's interesting too, because then I can get into like, like time travel stuff and things like that. Because it's like, are you going to be the same person when if you know where you end up, are you going to then come back and try to be that person? Or are you going to be a different person, you know, with the knowledge of what happened in the future? You know what I'm saying? Is it destined to happen, or is it, what do you think about that? Do you think if
Like
you
I
if
would
you
wanna.
knew, yeah, like if you knew that 100 years in the future you become this media, mogul, and all your kids are like taken care of and all those things and their kids are taken care of, would you want to know how it happened? Or like, what I mean, what would you do with that information?
I don't know, cause I wouldn't. I don't want to go to the future. Like I
Yeah,
want to.
you don't have no interest in going in the future.
Yeah, I don't have no interest in going into the future. Like only going back. If I went back, would I try to change things? Probably.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think learning, like I think if I learn more about where I came, and just because everybody wasn't a king sitting on a throne somewhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everybody's history is a day. You might go back and be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
We was murderers. We was out here serial
Yeah.
killers.
I
Like
had
what?
slaves.
Yeah.
Oh
So
man.
yeah, like damn, like I should have
Yeah.
went to the future. But I feel
Yeah.
like that would help me more to get to be in the media mogul, because who knows, you might go back and find that you were doing something, you were entrepreneurs, like you come from a line of entrepreneurs or something like that, and be like, oh yeah, I'm on the right path. I don't know. I
But
just don't
this is
have
what
any
happens. This is what
desire.
happens in the TV shows, right? So how would you stop yourself, or would you be able to stop yourself in the past from altering, what happens in the future? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, we
Like,
kind of talked about that last week. I definitely would. I would go back and talk to my people, but if I had
mhm,
like a couple, like a half hour, I'd be
mhm.
like, let me real
Like,
quick.
listen, do not get on the boat.
Yeah.
They're gonna say
Did you see? It was
to
like
to
a
go.
it
Like,
was like a video going around, and he was like he
don't
was gonna
go.
go back in time and give somebody a Popeye's biscuit or something so that they could choke. Something
Yo,
like it was somebody to like so that slavery wouldn't happen. He was gonna go back in
yeah.
time and give him a Popeye biscuit.
See, I'm just curious though. Like, those are this is the part. Like, as we've been talking for a half an hour already, but as good as that question is, I like the idea that, like the butterfly effect. Like, what if you change something and then things become like way worse? Like, you know what I mean? Or better. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever that
Can
thing
you
is.
believe
Or
that
like,
though? You
say,
step
I don't know.
you
I don't
step on the
know.
snail and now like the whole future is
I
different.
I don't know because I can imagine that, I could see how just slight pivots can change the direction of something. I don't, because that's the thing, because I don't know if I believe, and this is another conversation that I usually have with my students, is like, I don't know if I believe in destiny or fate, like, you know what I'm saying, in that way, in the way that people kind of use it. So if it's predestined, then to me that means no matter what happens, it was always going to happen. I mean, the end was always going to happen. And it's funny because they schooled me, because they were like, they said like, well, whatever happened, it was fated to happen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that was your destiny, which I thought was really astute. I was like, yo, that's interesting, because like we were going back and forth. I was like, what do you? 'Cause I almost didn't get it, but meaning
Yeah, I don't
like,
get it. So please explain.
so meaning like whatever happened, whatever ends up happening, that's your fate, right?
Right?
They're telling me that it wasn't your destiny for that thing to happen, but the fate was the end result, as opposed to it it was always supposed to happen that way. No, that's not what they're saying. I don't think they necessarily believe in destiny. This is like a legit you had to be there type of situation. But I was using those things interchangeably, but they took the inevitable outcome or course of action out of it. And like, we can both map out a destiny for ourselves, like, meaning like, I am inclined to be this way, I know I have a passion for this stuff, and I just know it's my destiny to be a famous such and such, or this kind of person in the community or whatever. If that does not happen, is that your destiny, or is it, if that doesn't happen, what do you call that?
Well, I think it's you have no way of knowing what it is. So if it whatever happens is what it was supposed to happen. So if
Right.
it doesn't happen, then that means it wasn't supposed to happen and it wasn't going to happen. So
Right.
either way, it's still your destiny. I think like
Right. So
I
so
think
you're so I guess, I mean, maybe we're doing we're having an English lesson, but like, I guess
I
the
feel
question,
like the
I think the question that I was asking them was, do you think that your life is predestined?
hmm
Like, do you think your life is predestined?
yeah, I think whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and there's nothing
And
that I can
nothing
do
that you
about it.
do, nothing that you do now is going to affect the outcome of your life.
Hmm. I think whatever I do is what I was always going to do, and that with however everything ends up is just how it was always going to end up. Like I can't change anything that's going to happen in the future. Any choice that I make, anything that I do, anything that happens, I was always going to do that, even though I may not know,
Hmm.
or or I didn't think that. I feel like that's what it always was going to be.
So interesting. I don't know. I don't know that I believe that. Maybe that's why I have such a good time with this conversation. But
Hmm.
it's like I don't know that things are predestined. Like I always do this thing where, I'm my sign is Cancer, and they always like, when you read these things, it's like, oh, cancers are this way, cancers do this, and cancers do that, blah blah blah. And not that this is scientific at all, but when I see that, like it'll say like, oh, cancers are nesters, like they're not adventurous, they don't, they don't go like. I specifically try to go against that, so I won't be kind of in that box of what they think cancers are, you know. So I'll go, probably against my better judgment and climb a mountain, like what I'm saying. Then I get up there and I forget that I'm afraid of heights. But I go because I'm like, nah, you ain't gonna tell me, in the paper or in this
Hmm.
article that a cancer is this way. Now, just because I like to go against what I feel like, you know, um, I don't know. I guess it's it's a question of end results. And I think when I speak about fate or destiny, I think I've always thought about it in terms of one, control, like on the person's part, and then two, that or you try to map it out beforehand. And what you're saying, and I think what my students are saying, it sounds like that no matter what, the end result is what that was supposed to be. But what do you call the process or the dream of where you want to be? And what if those two things don't align?
The process is life. You just live in life, and you're working towards whatever your goal is. I think I'm not gonna say I'm not religious. I'm spiritual. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, whatever you want to call it, but I do believe in God, and I believe that whatever your end is, whatever the plan that He has for you is there,
Okay.
and you're going to get there. However, you get there, I think the path to that is just you living your life. So, and I don't know if that's just a way for me to like cope with life, to
Mm-hmm.
have that understanding. I had a friend pass away. She was young. She had a goal. She wanted to open a restaurant. She wanted to do all these things, and she didn't get to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't feel like she could have changed that even if she wanted to. I feel like that's just what was going to happen. She didn't want to pass away young. She had kids.
Right.
She wanted to open a restaurant, and she tried to get to that point. So she was living her life working towards that goal, but life happened because that's just what her life was set to be from the time she got here. Like
Yeah.
from the time she got here, her endpoint was here.
Right.
And whatever she did in between that time was always what she was going to be able to do. I don't believe that if she could have opened a restaurant sooner or did anything any different. I don't believe any of us can. I just think that the fact that we don't know what the end is makes it seem like you have control over the ending because you don't know. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, I can work a little harder. I can work a couple extra hours to put this money up. I can do X, Y, and Z to make my future look different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you don't know what the future is.
Yeah.
So you don't. So you. I think it's an illusion to think that you could change it because you don't know what it is. So you don't know what it was going to be. So you can't say that you change your destiny, your goal, the trajectory of your life because you don't know what it was going to be anyway. So you, whatever it is, I believe that that's just what it will be.
So that's I think you said two things that are I think important or that I like to discuss is that one you said now now just jump right out my head. One you said that you feel like what God wanted to happen for you is what's going to happen. So do you think that we don't have any choice over what our life is supposed to be like ultimately, like in the end?
I think in the end, no, but it seems like you have a choice because you don't know what it is. I feel like because you don't know what the end result is, you're making choices every day based off of whatever your goal is or whatever your life looks like now. So your goal may be to be, a professional singer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But right now you have to go to work because you have bills to pay. But you're
Right.
going to stay up later to practice so that you can get better. So this is what you're doing. These are the choices that you're making because this is the goal that you see in front of you for your life. But in reality, your reason for being here, let's just say, is to influence these kids. So that's it. So once you reach that level or whatever it is, like that's it. And so because you don't know that that's it, you think that you're making choices that are going to influence your future in a way that you want, and it may just be that, but I don't think it's because you had control over it. I think it's because that's just what it was going to be. Like whatever it is was put in you, like whatever your desires are, your goals was put in you so you can work towards that. But I
So
don't
what do
think
you
you can
think?
change it.
What do you think about free will then? Do you think we have free will?
I don't believe in it.
You don't
Because
believe
it
in free
doesn't.
will?
No, it doesn't make sense to have free will doesn't make sense when the person supposedly, if we're talking about religion, like if
Mm-hmm.
God gave you free will, that
Mm-hmm.
but he already knows what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
doesn't
it's not.
sound
It's in contrast, right?
that doesn't sound like free will. Like
Mm-hmm.
like that person told me before, those two things I believe can't be true at the same time.
Okay.
Like you like those two things just can't be true. You can't tell me that God is omnipotent. He's everywhere. He knows everything. He knows what what every
Mm-hmm.
decision you're going to make. He knows it before you make it. He knows
Mm-hmm.
everything you're going to do. But then you have free will. Well,
Right.
I've been told, and this is part of the reason why I don't, go to church like that, is because I would rather you just say you don't know.
Yeah.
That's something that we just don't know. But for you to say, the answer I got was, well, it's free will because you don't know what choices you have to make. So, but that's not free will. If you
Yeah.
already know, meaning you created me, and this is probably a whole nother podcast conversation. But if you created me knowing that I was not gonna, you created me knowing that I was gonna choose Islam and be Muslim, right?
Mm-hmm.
and and this is referring to Christianity. You created me. You know I was going to choose to be Muslim, and then I was going to, let's say, stop being Muslim, and I was going to kill 14 people, and then that I was going to like be a deadbeat baby, whatever. You knew I was going
Mm-hmm.
to do all these things, and you created me anyway. And then I don't get to go to heaven because I didn't believe in you. How is there free will? If I had free will and I had the knowledge, I would always choose to do that.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess, and it's funny because it goes back into the question I didn't answer last week, or the part of the question I didn't answer last time. But it's like, if then what are we then? Like, I mean, what are we? Why are we here? Like, why does he? Why does the God put us here? Like, is he just playing The Sims?
I don't know. Now you can shed some light on that, because that's where my dilemma
Well,
comes in. I just stopped asking because when you
yeah.
start asking that question, that will make
Mm-hmm.
you not have any type of religion or believe in God. Because now it's like you said, are you playing the
Mm-hmm.
Sims? Like, are you playing? Because again, these two things can't be true to me. You can't be a loving God
Mm-hmm.
and then create a person that you know is not going to accept you and you're going to send them to hell.
Right.
Those two things can't be true.
Well, let me tell you, there's a slight variation that I learned, and I consider myself spiritual. I'm one of those people that call God, and the universe all at the same time. I know you wanted to talk about that too, but I was taught that you were put here, and the thing that makes you hold on, let me try. I'm gonna do like they do on the show. Reset, pick up. I'm gonna cut it right here, and then start off like it's a perfect answer. But um, so you were put here, you were placed here. You come to consciousness, and the thing that God gives you so you can direct your own life as free will. Now, God's hope is that you use that free will to do things that uphold the God body, like, the thing, all of the tenets that, all of the religions and all the things that you uphold that thing, but knowing that he cannot control you, he gives you free will. They give you free will. We gotta be 2023 now. Gives you free will. That's why it's easier to say the universe and consciousness and those things, because you don't have to assign nothing to it. But you get free will to be able to make the choice to be in quote unquote God's favor or not. And when you make the choice not to, then that's when you sin, or you've veered away from the path. But free will is an important part of becoming that consciousness, being alive or being here. And but then you're right though that people say, but I never really bought into the predestined, preordained, because I don't know. Like, I agree with you in the idea that then what are you doing? Like, why are we? I understand questioning your existence, which I think people should do anyway. But I understand questioning your existence because it's like, then I could do anything and still end up, like, I'm saying, in the in the place that I was going to end up at, and then it's like, well, is he playing a video game? Is it like, oh, some people have to be good guys and some people have to be bad guys, and some people what I'm saying? That would make sense, but I don't think that's what's happening. Like, I don't
Because
believe that
would
it's
a
happening.
good, loving, just God create a person to? Because if we take everything out in the middle, we take all that out.
Mhm.
You created this person to go to hell. That's what it sounds
Mhm.
like to me. You created this
Right.
person
And
to go to heaven.
right.
And if the only way it makes sense is if we truly have free will, if he doesn't know either. But if he
Well,
doesn't know the ending either, that takes away from his godship, and then people won't believe
well,
in
I
God
don't know. Well, I don't
anyway.
know that it does though, because so for me, I believe, and my belief is a little bit different. I grew up Catholic. Um, I was basically raised in a Christian tradition, but I'm what you call a recovering Christian, where a lot of people that grew up in the church, kind of like I did. I went to Catholic school until high school, and then I went to college, and I still had a kind of Christian upbringing in that, but I started questioning those things. But I think what I've always believed is that the creation comes from God, and what now I call the universe, or what I call consciousness, it comes from that source, or I call source. It comes from that source, and then you do with the consciousness what you will. Like, what I mean? You do with it whatever you feel that you should do at any given moment. And that explains all the variations, like, what I mean, like, oh, I didn't expect. And it explains the trauma, it explains the thing, because like I think, like you're saying, if it's the other way around, then it's like, here we go with conspiracy. It's just like, kind of like the Matrix. You're just made to fulfill. I mean, and then I would ask, to that, like, to what point, to what end? Why would you do that? Why would you just, unless you're playing a video game? Like, that's the only way I can understand it, is that, like, oh, I'm gonna make these people, and they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that, and then it's gonna, I don't that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I cannot logically accept that. So, and the free will thing might be a loophole, like, what I'm saying, but I think that, And I was taught that in Catholic school. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you were given a free will. It reminds me, I saw this meme yesterday. Take it off take it off of all this, the heaviness that we're doing or the seriousness that we're talking about. But the meme was the word said, "You all are out here thinking sinning is good," and then it had a it said "but," and then it had a picture of Sinbad. So Sari, you all think sinning is good, but Sinbad.
Stupid. Yeah,
You're
I
bringing me so
don't
much
know,
joy.
man.
Yeah, I just think it's a good question of belief because I don't think that you have to like I'll put it like this. I don't want a God that I can't question. I don't want a God that at its core I don't believe has the best intentions for all people. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like think of all the reasons why like the different religions don't get along. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and they say that it's in the name of their God, you know, which is
Mm-hmm.
not which to me I don't think is true. I think that, you know, all all the things that we get wrong or the religions get wrong about God is where we get mixed signals about what it is and how it affects our life. And I think it's important to really understand, have your own understanding of what God means to you and to your life, and ask those questions because it's like if you're living in a life where it doesn't matter, like if I'm living in a life, I'll put it like this: if I live a life where it doesn't matter what I do, and it's always going to end up like I'm going outside tomorrow, like it's GTA, like you know, I'm probably not because I'm not that person, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
But I
why not
think
live
that's
that life?
why
But I
people
think that's why.
created religion, because if you didn't have a set of rules, like if you didn't have the fear of hell, or like, you know, the
Mhm.
hope of a heaven, you would just be out here like whatever.
Yeah, but they be sometimes they be the worst one.
But I
So
think
like,
that's why religion is here, and
mhm.
we've actually gotten away from actually what God is and the essence of God. I think the religion part came into place to control people, because
No,
just like you said, like you would be out here like, well, I mean, what am I doing all this for then?
so I agree with that, but even under the parameters that you set, like it's still the same thing. Like I like meaning like I can know the rules, but my life is still going to end up being this way. So what's the point?
Yeah.
Like I said, for me, a lot of we we live in a 24-hour news cycle, so we know that it be some of these religious people that be some of the worst cats. You know what I mean? And not to offend nobody, but it's like, you know, unthinkable things. And even like I was saying, like all the wars and things that have happened in the name of quote unquote God, you know what I'm saying? Which
Mhm.
is really out in the reality, no, it's not. It's no different than what's happening now. It's just that they they that's the theme. This podcast is brought to you by they.
They.
Um they're doing the same thing with government, with with their own religions, like what religion has become today, and all those things, because it's like I'm just my interests are my religion. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And that makes sense because it's like my interests are the things that make me feel safe, they're the things that make me feel that existence is okay, you know what I mean? And I'm going to fight to the death for those things. But this is the same way I felt about love, and we had a lot of conversations about that. But it's like your interests being your God will cause a lot of trouble because your interests aren't the same interests as everybody else. And I feel like God, in that respect, then gets a bad rap because it's like I'm doing this for Jesus, like you know what I mean. And like, no, you're doing that because you like living in the house you live in, and like you know what I'm
Yes.
saying. And so it gets a little murky, but that's just very interesting. I'm very this went But it's funny though, because this is what I do when I go into my classrooms, right? And I'm supposed to be teaching them how to make resumes and how to, you know what I'm saying? And I get like an hour to do this. And look, we've been talking for an hour. I would legit go in there and talk for an hour with them young people and only want to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, like, and then I got to fake, and I hope none of the schools I go to are listening, but then I got to fake in the last 15 minutes. Oh, let's learn about resumes real quick.
Let's get this resume done.
That's all I really wanted to go in here and do. Anyway, but yeah. So yeah, man.
What's your ending thing again that you say?
Oh, what did I say last time? I wanted to come up.
Hey guys,
it's like listen, guys. All right, you ready? Pick up. Okay. Listen, guys. Don't match energy. Model energy. That's all I have to say about that.